The entire power rankings here from our Pete Prisco. Again, Niners stay number 1. Chiefs, the best team in the AFC, coming in at number 4. Now, if we focus on the top 10 here, some notable movements had the Cowboys coming up, as I mentioned. The Jaguars lose to the Chiefs, but still remain in the top 10, according to Pete Prisco. But a handful of teams have moved in, including the Bills, the Commanders, and the Saints, all in Prisco's top 10 this week. All right, we bring in Mr. Power Rankings, Pete Prisco. We've also got Brady Quinn.
I invented those, you know.
I know. I love these. This is my favorite time.
I did.
The Godfather of Power Rankings.
We were the first site to do Power Rankings, and I was the first guy to do them.
And it's Pete Prisco's Power Rankings.
Double P, Quad P?
Nobody ever got. Grandfather invented the Power Rankings. Yes, I'm like, yeah, what? Bell and Edison, Prisco invented the Power Rankings.
Yeah. Oh, I got to update that. I didn't know that. I got to put that in your Wikipedia.
Actually,
we've got to do that.
It was somebody's idea here, and I just followed along.
Okay. Yeah. But now it's yours to claim.
Yeah.
Let's get to the very top here. San Francisco by winning, and I don't know if there's any disagreement there because you had them at number 1 this week, but I think moving Philly down and Dallas up, take us through the thought process with that top 3.
Philly hasn't looked good. And you know, I was talking to somebody in the organization, and they were saying, yeah, we haven't looked great, but we're 2-0. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But they just don't look right to me. They didn't look right offensively for much of that game. Now, they ran it down the Vikings' throats in the second half. I got to give them credit for that. But defensively, I still, like, where's Reddick? You know, Reddick was a big part of their defense. He's a no-show so far. Yeah, the young defensive tackles are playing well. Yeah. I just think there's something off. And Dallas has been so dominant on the defense side of the ball, which is why I moved them up.
A couple of things. I mean, for starters, you've got an offensive coordinator, right, who's still trying to find himself within this offense, play calling his own identity. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball, a new defensive coordinator, right? I think that plays a little bit of a role. Look, a win versus Bill Belichick and the Patriots week 1, like that to me is a win, okay? Bottom line is you won that game, you get out of it, you know, with all the newness, I think. And I think we look at them as a Super Bowl contender, but the reality is they've got some adjustments on their coaching staff that I think are a lot harder to find themselves through. So their best football, I think, is ahead of them. Their roster is too talented. That's kind of what's carried them, I think, the first couple of weeks. But I'm with you. I mean, they haven't looked quite as dominant as we were accustomed to seeing them look based on last year. I still think this is one of the top teams in the league, no doubt about it.
I agree with you.
I think the interesting thing, though, is, you know, the way things have started out for Kansas City, you've now got 3 NFC teams at the top of your list. I know. KC at 4. And it's just a bit surprising because coming into the season, I think we always feel like Kansas City is still the team you got to beat if you want to win a Super Bowl.
And we thought the AFC would be at the top because of all the quarterbacks in the AFC. And we thought, oh, boy, these teams are all going to be there. And they still might get there. It's so early, like you always say. But the one thing about Dallas is Dallas' defense is dominant. It's really dominant. And that could carry you a long way. The Eagles can get there. They're missing guys. No Bradbury, no Blankenship, who's a really good player, no N'Kobe Dean. So they were missing guys.
Which offense looks better between Dallas and the Eagles, right? Because you said the defense of Dallas looks better. Yeah, I agree.
I don't think either one of them looks that great.
But who would you give the nod to?
Well, I'd probably give it to the Cowboys.
Okay. I was going to say...
I think Hurts has been a little off.
A little bit. I would still give the Philly offense right now the
I think the Philly offense will end up being better.
Yeah.
But I think the Dallas offense right now is right there with them.
So Brady mentioned Kansas City, hold steady at number 4. Now you do have the Ravens and the Dolphins moving up slightly, but not leapfrogging the champs here. Take me through the thought process of keeping KC where they were at after
and I thought about moving Miami up after what they did going on the road and winning 2 games, and they did it differently. Miami did.
I guess the back-to-back road games really didn't matter
coast
there.
To coast.
Well, coast to coast, back-to-back road games.
Could have if it was another inch, maybe. Yeah. Right? I mean, they could have.
They could have.
They did what the Patriots did what I thought they would do to Miami's offense, but give credit to Miami, they turned it around. But as far as Kansas City is still going to be there the whole time. They got Kelsey back. The offense still wasn't explosive, but the best news about Kansas City, their defense in 2 games against 2 good offensive teams, they've been really good. You talk about 14 points to the Lions and what, 6 to the Jaguars? I mean, you're going to win a lot of games when you do that. And so I think from that standpoint, or actually 9, but from that standpoint, that's the surprise for the Chiefs is the defense.
I don't know if it was a surprise. I mean, we kind of saw them coming on last year as a young defense. Talked about all the rookies in the secondary. They're all growing up. They're all coming to age, and I think they're able to provide that stability where the offense is still trying to find the playmaker outside of Travis Kelce. And I know you're going to hate me saying this, but maybe it's Isaiah Pacheco. I tried to tell you that before this week's game. He averaged at one point 10 yards per attempt running the football. It ended up being 6 when it was all said and done. But outside of Kelce, to me, he's the next most consistent piece. They got to find a way of getting Pacheco the football in the passing game in space. You could be a little more balanced handing the football off, and then find easier ways of getting Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Rashee Rice, all these guys, easier one-on-one opportunities off of that. I'm not saying you're taking the ball out of Mahomes'
And you
hands.
didn't. And by the way, you didn't have to run the ball against that Jacksonville offense on Sunday to keep them off the field because they weren't very good.
Well,
and the other
how
thing
many
we said
more- how
on
many more
Sunday,
fourth downs
we thought Chris Jones. We thought Chris Jones might be in a pitch count.
No.
Oh no. Oh no, right in, dominant. Dominated the entire game, whether it was over the guard, whether it was over the tackle, just pushed the pocket. He was dominant.
If we get back to the Dolphins, everyone's seeing Mike McDaniel running off the field, doing that W, and they're going to be home for the first time now, taking on a Denver team that is struggling. So what would you like to see more out of this Miami team, or what's the ceiling, you think, for the Dolphins here, Pete?
One thing that I give them credit for the New England game, New England wasn't going to let them go down the field.
No.
They were not. They had everybody back.
Safeties, all that.
And
back
Mike
up.
McDaniel in the past has continued to try and do that. And he was less stubborn this time around, and so was Tua. He took the checkdowns. They ran the ball. That's growth, and I think that's a good thing for the Miami Dolphins. It's a good thing for Tua. It's, you know, the one throw down the sideline was a terrible throw.
It was
picked off.
underthrown.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was picked off.
if he leads them, get over.
And that was the only time they really did try and go down the field.
And he had him. He just underthrew him.
Yeah, and so I think from that standpoint, I think that's growth for the Dolphins. I think defensively, not having Phillips in there, but boy, Van Ginkel was all over the place. They have guys. Fangio's a great defensive coordinator. And I think as they get guys back, you know,
Ramsey
Phillips
and
back,
everyone else.
Ramsey, watch out for that team. Look, I didn't think they would be as good as they are right now, and it's only 2 games. And the Chargers stink on defense, we know that. And New England's not great, but you win those 2 games on the road to open the season, you're sitting pretty in your division.
What I love about them is they're finding different ways to win. They're kind of reinventing themselves. They're not just a big play offense. They can matriculate the ball down the field. They can play good defense. They can generate some turnovers and pressures even without some of their best players. That's the sign of a team that's good, that's going to be eventually great if they can keep this up throughout the course of the season. The only reservation, this is always going to be the case moving forward, is Tua. Can he stay healthy? Can they protect him? Right now, he's getting the ball out of his hand in about 2.3 seconds. And if that's the case the rest of the season, good luck opposing defenses. You will not be able to touch them the whole time.
Yeah, nobody's getting near. I mean, the Chargers did, and they have 2 great pass rushers.
And watch, by the way, how many copycats end up taking this fast motion by the tight end to the outside, like we saw with Durham Smythe. That puts you in such a predicament, having to run off of that, the pass option, whether it's to Tyreek Hill or to the tight end up. It gives you so many answers as a quarterback as far as man zone, and on top of it, it's difficult to stop right at the snap of the ball like that.
But there are also people around the league saying this week that maybe the Patriots have come up with some sort of blueprint to try to play Miami too. Just play off and make them be patient, because eventually you're going to make some mistakes. And I'd rather have this.
Thing could be said about the New England Patriots. Eventually, Mac's going to make mistakes.
True.
That's
but nobody
human
thinks
nature.
that's a high-flying offense, though. They think this is a high-flying offense.
True, but
So
you
play that way.
also get those guys in space, and like we saw, yeah, Tyreek Hill was limited in the big plays. Still found himself in the end zone, didn't he?
Yeah, but he didn't have a lot of yards, and he did.
It doesn't have to. It's the effectiveness and the efficiency of it, and that's what they came away with.